Labour have been urged to drop the Tory rhetoric or risk failing to fix the broken asylum system. I'm going to read into this exclusive from The Guardian, you guys. Let's go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Reganelite here with an exclusive from The Guardian with the headline that Labour have been urged to drop the Tory rhetoric or risk failing to fix the broken asylum system. The exclusive reveals that end the focus on deportation and the use of language of compassion and humanity, says the Refugee Council. Guys, while you're here, make sure you hit the like button and share it across social media so others are notified of this video. I don't think the language or the rhetoric is going to be determining whether or not we will ever fix the asylum system. It's not about the language. From on that particular point, I really want to make. But when we are using the rhetoric and the tone that is being used by certain politicians, by certain people in certain aspects of the media, shall we say, it really regurgitates the same lines that people are falling into, and people have this belief that literally all their problems revolve around immigrants and asylum seekers, people from other countries of origin, which is just simply not true. But they want to believe it, and they will literally take up whatever, and they will only be reinforced by the people who will agree with their premise or their position, rather than choosing to listen to a different opinion and a different option of that. Immigration is a problem, but immigration is not the reason why our country is the UK as a whole is not in a great state right now. There are a number of factors that are the reason that we are in. Brexit, cost of living crisis, just two examples there. I do think the tone and the language that is used by politicians really does matter, and I do hope. I think hope is the right word, not expect. I do hope that Labour does tone the language down when it comes to asylum seekers. I do think that they are using tough language at the moment because it is obviously the topic of discussion. It is something that the so-called right wing media such as Talk TV and GB News obviously bang into the people's heads every single day, because people obviously have got nothing better to talk about except immigration all their lives, because they think all their problems resolve around immigration without looking to go outside their bubble. And that harsh language is obviously being reinforced by politicians and the language that they use, and not just the language and words they use, but the tone that they use really does matter. And when you hear some of the language and tones especially from the former Home Secretary Suella Braverman, it was very nasty language, very, very nasty language that she was using. And this is from someone who actually has, who is not a white British person as well. So I do think that the rhetoric does need to change without a shadow of a doubt over time. Now, do I think Labour are going to get on top of the broken asylum system? I do think they will over time. I do think they will. Obviously, time will tell. They have only been in power for 2 months. I recently saw a report where Richard Tice was saying that recently some lives were lost across of more people trying to cross the channel, and Richard Tice had used the tone that the blood is on the hands of the Labour government, which I think is outrageous to say the least, because if that was the case, then are you going to say that blood is on the hands of the Conservative government and Rishi Sunak for what they've done for the last 14 years as well? Are you going to say that as well? I don't think that kind of language is acceptable, if I'm honest. Especially with a government only been in power for 14 years. Apply a bit of common sense is what I will say. We've got to give Labour a chance to deal with the asylum system, to deal with the backlogs that we have, to come up with initiative ways that the Conservatives haven't been able to come up with the last 14 years. We know one of the easiest solutions is obviously safe legal routes, which is something that Zoe Gardner has been screaming all over the place every time she's gone on to broadcasters and medias, who is an immigration expert who knows the stuff in and out. She knows the stuff better than anyone when it comes to this issue. Safe legal routes is one of the key things that will destroy the gangs. But Nobody wants to talk about that. But let's read a bit more into this exclusive, what they've had to say here, you guys. So, Labour will be at real risk of failing to reform the UK's broken asylum system unless it challenges Tory rhetoric and stops focusing on deportation of asylum seekers, the head of the Refugee Council has said. Enver Solomon, the charity's chief executive, said Keir Starmer must use the language of compassion and humanity in order to tackle the verification of refugees. 100%. The Home Secretary plans to expand detention without opening safe routes are costly and unnecessary, and the government must insist accelerate grants asylums for asylum claims to tackle the backlog and community tensions around asylum hotels, he said. There is a growing concern from charities, unions and left-leaning MPs that the government is adopting the language and politics established by the Tories around asylum and immigration. Yeah, that is the concern. Sorry, excuse me, that many people seem to be having, and I do share that concern. I am definitely someone that shares this concern, that is for sure. And I think if we don't, we got, it comes from the top up when it comes to language and the attitude that we use. And so far, I'd say Keir Starmer has come across very much as a much more professional prime minister than we've had. It does feel like even though people still class him as boring, he does come across a lot more professional than some of the other prime ministers we've had for a while. That is for sure. Yes, I do accept that he's still boring to an extent. Last month, Yvette Cooper drew criticism after announcing plans to wrap up deportation levels excuse me, not seen since 2018, with a target of expelling more than 14,500 refused asylum seekers within the next 6 months. I just, at the time of this recording, I've just live streamed Prime Minister's questions, and they've already deported apparently 400 people within 2 months, something that the Conservatives have not been able to do. So for all those people who have problems with immigration and asylum seekers, are you going to give credit where credit is due to the Labour government for already starting to deport people? Are you going to give them credit? Of course you're not. You're not going to do that. Those that are caught working illegally and eligible for removal will be detained pending their swift removal, the Home Office said. Solomon said the Labour government had not yet challenged the political rhetoric and that had contributed to the hatred and vilification of refugees. Excuse me. He said angry talk of invasion, stopping the boats and labelling everyone as illegal has raised the temperature and had an effect of stripping people fleeing war and oppression from the world's travel spots of their stories and humility. The challenge is now to ensure that the language of compassion and humanity is adopted by all politicians, with government taking the lead. On the 21st of August, Cooper said 300 caseworkers have already been reassigned to progress thousands of failed asylum and returns cases, including enforced and voluntary returns, and announced the reopening of 2 controversial immigration removal centres. Solomon said that the Home Secretary's plans for mass detention and deportation of refused asylum seekers were immoral, expensive and impractical. Well, I would say that if their application has been rejected, then they need to go. If they can be sent back to the country that they come from, then that's what needs to be done. Plans to expand immigration detentions are wrong. It's costly and unnecessary move when the UK already has a very large detention estate. Government should be seeking to end the use of detention, as there are more effective and humane alternatives that have been piloted by the Home Office and shown to work. We should be learning from these rather than doubling down on the excessive use of detention, he said. After attacks on asylum seekers hotels in Rotherham and Tamworth this summer by the far-right activists, some of whom were chanting Rishi Sunak's promise to stop the boat, Solomon said the asylum system should be overhauled to reconfigure asylum decision-making and accommodation. The current private contractors have consistently failed to deliver, and it's time to bite the bullet and end the contracts as soon as possible. The government must work hand in hand with councils to ensure they are fully equipped to house people in local communities in a safe and dignified way and ensure that value for taxpayer money. Yeah, cost for all this obviously does definitely take into consideration when you're thinking about all this stuff. From the riots, it's also vital that serious work is led by the government on community cohesion, including a clear plan on refugee integration, he said. Starmer had promised to smash the gangs that exploit people seeking asylum across the channel and resisted calls to establish safe routes for those who wanted to come to the UK. Yep, and as long as those routes are not established, we will always have criminal gangs. You will never get rid of the criminal gangs unless you apply safe routes for people to come to the UK. There are no safe legal routes for people to come to the UK unless you are from a certain country, which is wrong. In the year ending June 2024, Afghans were the top nationality crossing the channel, making up just a fifth of small boats' arrivals. Iranians 13% were in second place, followed by arrivals from Vietnam and Turkey, both on 10%. Half of the 36,000 people seeking asylum who live in hotels come from just 5 countries with the highest asylum grant rates, Solomon said: Afghanistan, Iraq, Iran, Sudan, and Syria. Sudan, obviously, because there's a massive civil war taking place in the country. Syria is obviously suffering from civil war. Eritrea has had its problems as well, and everybody knows, well, Iran obviously knows the history there. Afghanistan obviously speaks for itself as well. There is now a unique opportunity to do much better. Instead of taking a make, do, and mend approach, it's now time to radically reconfigure asylum decision making and asylum accommodation, he said. Amnesty International Refugee and Migrant Rights Programme Director Steve Valdez-Simmons had previously accused Labour of reheating the Conservative government's rhetoric around border security. This securitised approach to asylum and immigration will simply deter and punish many people in need of crossing borders, people who are therefore most vulnerable to criminal exploration, he said. Cooper has announced a tax plan to recruit 100 investigators and intelligence officers to target police smuggling gangs as part of a measure to clamp down on illegal migration. The National Crime Agency will find specialists to dismantle and disrupt organised international crime networks that exploit asylum seekers, she said. As of the 19th of August, 19,294 people that had crossed the channel in 2024, more in the same period than the previous year, but below the level in 2022. In the Commons on Monday, the Scottish National Party MP Peter Walshard used a debate on this summer's riots to call on Cooper to stop demonising asylum seekers. Where she says, sorry, let me repeat that. Where Cooper says she wants to debate, does she accept that the way that immigrants and asylum seekers have been portrayed by a whole host of political voices have helped to foster and foment even more encourage some of the scenes that we have witnessed? And those that will be whipping up this type of activity must be held to account as those that peddle the misinformation. And she will also help the debate by talking a little bit more positively about immigration and stop demonising asylum seekers. The Home Office had been approached for comment. Language matters, as I've said in someone else's video in the comment section. The language that are used by politicians, the language used by the media, by certain media outlets, really does matter when it comes to immigration, asylum seekers. The language is too nasty and too negative and too much hate, and it needs to change. The tone needs to change without a shadow of a doubt. and people who use nasty language, they should be called out more on it. Not enough is being called out on it. To demonise and people who are going through such difficult periods, difficult times in their lives, but it's simply on the basis that because they're not white and they're not British, people use this language and that to treat them treating them indifferently. The language really does matter. We need to change that, and I do hope the government does change its tone on the language. That is for sure. But as long as we don't have safe legal routes for people to come to the UK, we will always have people crossing the boats, people trying to smuggle onto the trucks and whatnot to come over. You will never reduce that. You will never reduce those numbers unless you create safe legal routes. This is an issue that is not going to go away. But I do believe that Labour will bring the numbers down over time. But we will have to wait and see on that. But what do you guys think? What do you guys make of the tone and the language that has been used by politicians and right-wing media? What do you guys make of the Tory rhetoric that they have used over the last 14 years? Do you actually think there's some justification for it? I don't, but maybe you will disagree with me down in the comment section below. Let me know your thoughts and more about all this. If you found this video interesting or informative, please hit the like button. We'd greatly appreciate it. Share this across social media so others are notified of this video. And subscribe if you haven't already, because it really does help support the channel. And if you want to go one step further, financially support me and the work that I do here on this channel, you can do so by becoming a YouTube member for as little as 99p. Or you can join me on Rumble or Patreon for exclusive content on those platforms. So thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to catch you all very, very soon.